function means we can execute a function immediately after we are going to define it. Whenever after defining that function, we are immediately executing that function. Then simply wrap the function in parentheses and invoke it. Here you can see simply wrap the function in parentheses and invoke it. Okay, see the example of that higher order function here. Function, here you can see within the parenthesis we are going to write that function. Okay, function my data, this is the name of that function within parenthesis. See this function my data with the body console.log print my data was executed and close the body of that function. Okay, then close that opening bracket of that function here, and here you can see this is the function parenthesis here. Okay, so this is the way we can declare that higher order function or write the higher order function here. Here you can see an immediately executing function creates a new variable scope. Here we are going to execute that function immediately after declaring or creating function. We are directly executing or calling this function. Okay, so an immediately executing function creates a new variable scope. And here you can see if, else or while does not create a new variable scope in JavaScript. Remember this, if statement or if loop, else or while loop does not create a new variable scope in JavaScript. Okay, so how to declare or create a higher order function, or what is higher order function, how to call this function. Okay, immediately executing function, that is higher order function. Okay, see the example for this here. Variable my data is equals to 1 2 3. That my data variable consists of value 1 2 3. If it is true, then variable my data is equals to 4 5 6. Okay, so we are going to print that console.log, and what we are going to print that variable my data. So what it will print, it will print 4 5 6. Why? Because variable my data is equals to 1 2 3. If it is true, then it will execute this. Okay, so what we are, if this is true, then we are going to print this my data value, that is 4 5 6. Yeah, the only recommended way of creating a new variable scope in JavaScript is using a function. Using a function we can create a new scope or new variable scope. Here you can see the following code shows how to create a new variable scope with an immediately executing function. Here you can see we are going to create the new scope here with the what we can say with the variable scope. Here you can see variable my data is equals to 1 2 3. If it is true, then we are going to execute the body of this if loop. Here you can see inside that we are creating a new scope here. Here see, open the bracket, then write function without function name. Okay, function we are going to call here, and body of that function is variable my data is equals to 4 5 6. Close the body of that function. Okay, then close the parenthesis of that function and execute here. See this opening and closing bracket direct, that means immediately executing this function, that is higher order function. Okay, here we are going to create a new scope, then we are directly executing this function, and after closing this, close that if loop and print that console.log my data, that is it will print 1 2 3. Why it will print 1 2 3 here? Here you can see here variable my data is equals to 1 2 3. If it is true, we are going to create a new scope here. We are going to create the new scope here and executing that function immediately here. That is, that function consists of variable my data is equals to 4 5 6, and what we are going to print here, console.log my data, that is 1 2 3. It will print that my data as 1 2 3. Okay, then anonymous function. What is anonymous function? We have seen that function without a name is called an anonymous function. Okay, function without name, that is anonymous function. In JavaScript we can we can assign a function to a variable. How we can assign that function to a variable, we will see here. If you are going to use the function as a variable, Listen this and listen carefully. Okay, so in JavaScript we can assign a function to a variable. If you are going to use the function as a variable, you don't need to name the function. Okay, so that is without name, that function is anonymous function, and we can assign that function to variable. That means we can use a function as a variable. Okay, so here you can see that sample code here. It will shows two ways of defining a function in line here. Okay, here you can see variable f001. Okay, this is the variable f001, that is foo1. This is the variable is equals to function name function. Here this is the name of that function. Okay, name of that function, and body of that function consists of console.log in bracket foo1. That means we are going to print this variable. Okay, and after closing the body of that, we are calling this function, oh sorry, we are calling this variable, that is f001 foo1 with that opening and closing bracket. What this function will print? It will print f001, that is it will print that variable. Why? Because we are here, you can see that function, we are going to use that function as a variable. That variable consists of this function. Okay, so now that f001, that is that variable is act as a function here. Here you can see that variable act as a function. Okay, so it will print that console.log f001, that will it will print foo1. Okay, then another type is, here you can see variable foo2 is equals to function without name, that is anonymous function. This is the example of with function name. And now function without name, here you can see that is anonymous function. This function, here you can see the variable foo2 is equals to function, open the body, then write console.log and print f002, then call this variable. That means why this variable? Because now this variable act as a function here, so it will print this f002. Okay, so this is example with the name function and without name, that is no function name, that is anonymous function, and this is the name function. Now here we have seen that variable act as a function, that means function as a variable. Okay, so a programming language is said to have first class function if a function can be treated the same way as any other variable in the language. Here that variable act as a function. Okay, like function call, we are going to call that variable because that variable consists of that function. Okay, so JavaScript has a first class function here. And next topic is higher order functions. Higher order functions. Here, since JavaScript allows us to assign functions to variables, we can pass functions to other functions. Okay, JavaScript allows us to assign functions to variables. We have seen that we are going to assign the function to that variable, and so that we can pass function to other functions. Okay, like passing parameters to that function, we are going to pass functions to that function. How we will see here? Here you can see that functions that take functions as an argument are called as higher order functions. What is higher order functions? Functions that take functions as an argument. That means we are going to pass that argument to that function, like that is function we will pass as an argument to that function. Okay, then here you can see a very common example of a higher order function is set timeout. Here you can see the set timeout function. It is a predefined function, set timeout function, and parameters we are going to pass the function, that is function. Okay, we are going to pass the parameter to set timeout function, that is function as a parameter. What that function consists of? It will print console.log, that is 2000 milliseconds have passed since this demo started. This is the parameter to that set timeout function. Okay, after closing this body, comma 2000, here you can see the parameter for set timeout method or function. First we will pass the function with that another parameter here. Okay, here you have seen that function with argument as a function, that is higher order function. Okay, functions that take function as an argument. Okay, so when if you run this application in Node.js, we will see the output like We will see this message after 2 seconds. Okay, yeah, this is the deal, timeout time. Oh, yeah, we have said timeout with this message. This message is written inside that function, or we are going to pass this function as a argument to the another function. Okay, this is the higher order function. Here we use an anonymous function as the first argument to set timeout. This is the anonymous function because this function does not have any name. Okay, so this makes set timeout a higher order function. We can create a function and passing that in. Okay, here you can see function foo. We can create a function and we can pass that function to that another function. Here you can see now we are going to create a function with the name foo with the message. Okay, and after that, to set timeout function, we are going to pass this function as an argument. Here you can see the function name and the another parameter of that is the delay timeout here. Okay, so that's it for today's session. Okay, we have seen that Node.js functions, then anonymous functions, higher order functions. Okay, so that's it for today's session. We will stop here. Thank you.